are you? And welcome to My Two Cents, Sense and Change, the show that is a social platform to listen to the unheard and listen to their mindsets to help spark sense and inspire change. I'm your host, Anna Simanamu, and today we're going to be talking about the experience of a former Playboy Centerfold and her transformation in becoming a top-rated insurance professional. It's a story of overcoming challenges and taking risk, and I think it's definitely one to hear and be inspired by. Our guest today is Deborah Driggs. From her start as a Playboy Centerfold and Covergirl to her life as a Screen Actors Guild member and then a top-rated insurance professional, Miss Driggs has had to clear many hurdles in her life to make these things happen. And while it may seem like Deborah's success was rather easy to her, it really is farther from the truth. I'm really excited to hear her perspective of how this journey has been for her, as she has come from numerous challenges in her life to get to where she is today. But one thing that remains true and is instilled as part of her character is her drive, her willingness to take risks and maintain a positive attitude and never taking no for an answer. So let us welcome Miss Deborah Driggs onto our podcast. So hi, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and allowing me this time.
Now, of course, it's not every day that you, like in my case, come across someone who, has experienced so much in this life and, I believe has a story to tell. And then again, you just don't meet a Playboy Centerfold nowadays anywhere. So.
Yeah, we're a dime a dozen. There's a social media post that says, I don't know who came up with it, but it says, once a playmate, always a playmate. And it's pretty true. Once you're selected and it's out there forever. And in my case, it is now a collector's item because Donald Trump is on the cover of my issue. And so for me, it's, what are the chances that a future president of the United States is going to be on the cover, let alone, Playboy. I think in the history of Playboy, there's been maybe 6 men total that have been on the cover of Playboy, and mine just happens to be the president. So.
Wow, that is totally
yeah, so all of a sudden, you can imagine, my issue came out March 1990, and you can imagine now I get more fan mail today because it's a collector's item. And, have had many influential people interviewed in the magazine, but I don't think he ever would have thought, one would be the president.
Yeah, and of course, given the circumstances of how it is right now in the world, really for it to be a collector's item now, that's a huge deal.
It's a huge deal, and what, it doesn't matter what you think about him as a person or whatever. It's just, for me, it's a part of my history now. So. Little inside scoop. So Brandy Brandt is on the cover with Donald, and I'm the centerfold inside. But everybody thinks it's me on the cover. And so I get so many people going, oh my God, that's so cool. You're on the cover with Donald Trump. And I never say a word. And I'll tell you why. Because Brandy sold all her issues. She wants nothing to do with the fact that she's on the cover with Donald Trump. So it's kind of become an inside joke because I'm sure she's totally fine with me taking the credit, I'm like, oh, thanks. meanwhile, she's probably like, oh, thank God, yeah, it's Deborah on the cover. I find it very funny because, it is what it is. We can't go back and erase the past, and you can't change history. You can change it in your own story, but you can't change what is. And so for me, it's I'm super grateful for the fact that it is, part of history. And that's that.
Right. And, and the fact that there's a mutual understanding between you and Brandy in this situation is like,
oh, yeah.
I feel like that type of understanding you just don't see nowadays. No. And it's very cool.
It's just funny. Yeah. She's unloading, and this is the funniest part, okay? So she's unloading all her issues on eBay, and I'm buying them.
Oh my God.
It's so funny to me. It's like she's like, she wants nothing to do with it. And I'm like, yeah, so no, I'll buy them. I just looked, as a matter of fact, because I have a podcast that I do. And so sometimes we do a giveaway and somebody will say, well, I want a signed issue. And so I said, yeah, well, have you looked online? The Donald issue is going for close to $300 right now. And it's like a magazine from 1990. It's like, who would have thought?
No, yeah. I feel like that experience in itself right now, like I could literally like comprehend it. But like how did you come about like working or being hired by Playboy, and how is that experience like?
So back in the day, so I started out, my career started in 1983. I started modeling in Japan. I was in Japan dancing with a dance group. And while I was there, I got asked to do this print ad. And I had so much fun on the set, and I thought, oh, I love this. I could do this. And so when I came back to the United States, I told everybody I was going to be a model and an actress. And they all kind of looked at me like, what? And so, I got every reason why I should not pursue this career because, 1 in a million have a career, 1 in a million make it. You're only 5 3/4. Models are 5'10". Oh, I got every reason why, and I was like, I'm going. And so I started out doing commercials, and I finally got signed by a print agent because it was true. It was really hard at my height to even have a print agent look at me, but I got signed with Mary Webb Davis and Style Models. I think it was called. No, it was. Gosh, I always forget the first name. Kathy something Models. Kathy Clark. I think it was Kathy Clark in Orange County, and then Mary Webb Davis. This is 1983. And so I have 2 print agents, and by the way, I'm booking 80% of the things that I'm going out for. So all the statistics and everything that was being thrown at me wasn't accurate. So by the time Playboy came to me, it was like it kind of came on a silver platter because I didn't really pursue Playboy, and I really didn't know much about the company or the history, to be honest. I just didn't. It wasn't in my world. And so I get a call from my agent, and she said, Playboy's coming out with a new book. It's called the Lingerie Book, and they want to see you for the cover. And my first question was, well, is there any nudity involved? And she said, I don't think so. It's for the cover. Yada, yada, yada. I go to the audition. I go to the famous building on Sunset. The Playboy building in the 80s was a famous building on Sunset. And I go and I sign in, and they handed me a robe and said, go change, and then we'll call you when we're ready. And I said, well, I don't need a robe. I'm here for the cover. And they said, well, they need to see your body, so you need to take everything off. Now, I was talking about this earlier. I did a live radio show earlier today, and I was talking about this because I forget this too, because now it wouldn't matter. But in the 80s, they were looking for scars and body birthmarks, tattoos, piercings. they had to see what the canvas was, what they were working with. So when I went in to do the audition, I hadn't taken my clothes off, and I kind of just went in and met everybody, and they were like, well, we need to see your body. And I was like, oh, I'm here for the cover of the, and they said, yeah, well, everything we do is nudity. So I went down to my bra and panties. I did the Polaroid. I did not think this audition went well. I left. I got home. Back then, I had an answering machine where you had to push the button to hear your messages.
Right.
Yeah, back in those days. And I get a message from Marilyn Krawowski, the chief editor of Playboy, and she literally said to me, Deborah, this is Marilyn Krawowski from Playboy. She has a very distinctive voice. And anyway, she just said, we want to test you to be a centerfold. And I called my agent, and I'm like, I can't believe this message. And my agent was like, yeah, it's true. And so we were like, should I do it? What the? It was like a dream. And so for me, it was more about, up until this point, I was doing Fedco. I was working on the Fashion Network, the Fashion Channel, which was the big thing before HSN and QVC. The first cable shopping was called the Fashion Channel, and I was one of the models on that show. And then, I was, if you got the Sunday paper, I was the girl going. And so I was doing print modeling and commercial modeling. And, our big concern was back then it was a big deal. And I was no longer going to be that wholesome girl, after doing Playboy. And so it was a risk I had, I felt compelled to take. And I talked about it in length. I said, I think this might ruin my career. And I don't know if people will take me seriously, but I was willing to take the risk. And so that's how Playboy came into my life. And once I started shooting and shooting my centerfold, and I just went for it, once I was in, I was in. And I remember one of the days I was in the makeup room and I was talking to the makeup artist, and we're becoming friends. And she said, Deb, thousands of girls submit their photos a day. Playboy gets over 1,000 submissions a day from girls all over the world that want to be in this magazine. And it really hit me. Like, I thought, wow, and here it was handed to me almost by accident. And so then I really got curious about Hef, and I got curious about the mansion. I got curious about Chicago, where it all started. And I started really getting involved in the whole brand of Playboy. And I have such fond memories. I was treated so well. And, Hef was one of the most genius people I've ever met and been in proximity of. He really was unique and one of a kind. So, it's just super, super cool thing. And then, of course, Donald Trump is on the cover of my centerfold, and then I'm on the cover of the following month. So I had this huge momentum. And then I ended up doing quite a few European covers. And then I think the coolest thing that happened was I got a call from Playboy. They have a promotional department, kind of like an agency, and they called me and they said, Richard Shankman wants to meet you because cable TV is, Playboy is now going to have a channel called the Playboy Channel. And they're coming out with a show called Hot Rocks. And basically, it's going to be a cable show that's going to compete with MTV and VH1, and not really compete, but what it's going to do is it's going to show all the videos that those shows are censoring or will not show. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, I'm totally intrigued. And so I met with them, and I got hired as the first VJ for Playboy's Hot Rocks, and that was the coolest thing, because then I started meeting rock stars and interviewing them and learning how to be one-on-one with somebody and talk about stuff off the cuff and all of that. And that was like the big learning curve because I had never done anything like that before. I was always the person in the background or the model on the show or the extra or, I wasn't the main person. And so now I was the front person. And so that was kind of cool. And then my confidence really started building. And so then I put myself through 2 years of acting and started booking acting gigs and all of that. So that was kind of the year, I would say, if I had a great year in that business, 1990 through 1992 were like, I had great momentum and meeting lots of people and doing lots of cool shows and going down that path. So yeah, Playboy was definitely, for me, it was a good stepping stone. And also, the thing that I look back, when I look back on it now and how I view things now is anything in life it's all going to be in the power of how you translate it to the world or how you use it. We all get stepping blocks at some point in our life. We all get these opportunities, and I think it's up to us to either make the best of it or, and so for me, I always felt like the queen of Playboy. Just, you know what I mean? Like, that's how I saw it. And whether I was Playmate of the Year or, it didn't matter. It didn't matter to me what was going on around me. I just felt super, super grateful for that experience and used it to my advantage, really. People call me and say, we want to talk to you about, Playboy or this or that. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. It was a cool experience for me. I mean,
well, honestly speaking, right now, like, I think right now this is like my cool experience because, I mean, growing up in my case, like, I had an older brother, and of course, like, it's natural if, if guys...
They look at girly magazines?
Yeah, so it's only natural, and of course I never questioned it. But then I got to the point where I was like, what is Playboy, and why the symbol of the bunny? And I thought it was pretty, like, cute. I mean, then again, I thought Hello Kitty was cute too. So yeah, so it got me thinking, and I was like, you know what, it's pretty cool. And I don't want to say it's taboo, like, in certain, like, generations or cultures, but, like,
it is.
Yeah, I mean,
it was when I did it. Like, there were certain people that no longer hired me. No, it was okay, and I knew that was coming. I knew that there was a part of my career that was over, and a new chapter was opening, and it was taboo back then. Certain shows that we just didn't audition for because they were family shows, and you couldn't have a Playboy Centerfold on the family show. And so there was stigma. There was. Today, it's a free-for-all. Anything goes. I mean, you can see more on social media than in Playboy magazine. So I think it's really interesting. And but that was my time. That was what was happening back then.
No, yeah. In this case, like, me being able to interview you, like, this is amazing. Like, I never in my life expected I would ever get to talk to, like, someone from Playboy, even like a Playboy Centerfold. So, like, right now, I'm probably living anyone's dream right now. But it's like you said before, like, if we're not taking risks, then what are we really doing?
Yeah.
So, I mean, in this case, for me, this is a challenge, but I'm also, like, really, it's a fun experience. And the fact that I get to hear your perspective about how it was working, for Playboy during the 90s, and of course, like, us, the audience, we get a whole different perspective where the censorship does exist, and then, like, you can't even go out exploring because, like, again, the stigma and everything. So
yeah.
This literally shifted my whole insight, and it's like, wow.
It's an interesting world, and the whole I think the thing that was really cool about Hef, and the thing that I loved about his vision and how he saw that magazine, the centerfold was really just kind of like the icing on the cake. It wasn't the reason for the magazine. He really created a gentleman's magazine. He wanted men to have more style. He wanted men to be worldly and travel, and that's why he got the sponsors and the ads. The advertising in that magazine was everything 5-star. It was the best cigar. It was the best Cavassier. It was the best cognac. It was, the best champagne, the best suits for men to wear. And then the interviews, the people, the cutting edge interviews. And then the centerfold was like the fun, playful side of the magazine. And so when you really dissect what it is that his vision was, it was so beautiful and so cool, because you had women that were coming out in the 60s and 70s like, you're exposing women in this horrible way. And no, it was a playful way for women to be like, you know what, we're naughty and nice. We have all sides, and the body's beautiful. Like, why would I be ashamed of that? And that's why I said today on social media, you have women in like nothing. They're, posting photos, everyday photos, and Playboy was something you looked forward to. It was like the playmate of the month, it was something you looked forward to see that girl next door that maybe these men could actually date. She was the approachable one. And that was what I think set his magazine apart. And he really held to that standard of, he wanted the girls to be fun and vivacious and approachable.
So would you say like it was more of like an empowerment of like the women psyche and like, presence and everything?
Well, I sure felt empowered. There is something about being raw. When you are literally exposing yourself to the world, there's something empowering about that. It's like, this is it. This is who I am. And what's interesting about it too, and this was a question I had earlier, was somebody said, if Playboy came to you today and said, you know what, we want to redo a shoot showing you 30 years later, would you do it? And I said, oh my God, fuck yes. Of course I would. Because guess what? I'm not that girl 30 years ago. I'm like 5 versions away from that person. I've had so much growth and I didn't know who I was at 25. I think it's so much more sexy when we get into our 50s. And I've taught, I have a lot of, obviously I have a lot of women friends, and we talk about it. Like all of a sudden, like 50 is very sexy. It's a very different feeling. And I think it comes from experience, and there's no other way some women feel it in their 20s. I just happen to not really feel it in my 20s. I feel it now. I feel that feeling of like, okay, I've been through stuff. I feel great. The confidence is different. It's like, it's sometimes, I don't know about you, but even if you look at a photo from a year ago, sometimes you'll go, was that me? And that's how I feel
all the time.
I had a girl show up. I was at this leadership retreat, and one of the women that was on the retreat, she came up to me. She says, you're not going to remember me, but we did a commercial. I think she's from Atlanta. She says, we did a commercial in 1985 or something like that. And I went, what? She goes, yeah, and I have a photo. And she showed, because it was a beer commercial, and we were in roller skates. And I go, God, I vaguely remember this. And then she showed me the photo, and I was like, oh my God, I remember it, but it didn't even look like me. And I was like, that's me. Like,
oh, wow.
But, I had a situation where I moved probably in 1997 or 98. One of the moves that I did cross country, I think it was from California to Florida. In that move, I lost probably 2 or 3 boxes, and in those boxes were like memorabilia. It was probably, boxes that I hadn't opened that I just kept storing. They just kept going with me. And then one day I was like going to look for that stuff and it was gone. And I thought I probably lost it in one of the moves. And then I thought, maybe somebody kind of peeked and saw like his magazines and all that kind of stuff. But who knows, you never know where these things end up and how they'll resurface. But I did lose a lot of memorabilia. So I was so happy when she showed me this photo because I was like, oh my God, I don't have anything from that time, that I have because it got lost in one of my moves. But anyway, so yeah, she, can you imagine like 30 years later, somebody coming up to you and going, I worked with you, and then showing you a photo?
It's like, maybe it was a sign for you because, like, I mean, it's not even attachment. It's just more so like if you have these memories or these memorabilias that you really wanted to hold on to, it's like whatever might have happened, it's like it was slowly working its way back to you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful story.
It was beautiful. It was so amazing. And then, to have somebody like that resurface into your life, and, because I've met a lot of people, I met a lot of people in the 80s and 90s, and I worked with a lot of different people. Somebody asked me the other day, like, did you ever do any music videos? And I'm like, yeah, I did a bunch, but I couldn't even tell you which ones I did. I don't remember. Like, there were so many, up and coming bands doing videos. I just remember being at propaganda films quite a bit, shooting music videos. And it's like, I feel like I did a Def Leppard. I feel like I couldn't tell you. I know I did Devo for sure. That one I remember really well.
Nice.
But it's that, and people go, how can you not remember? And I'm like, there was a lot going on. There was so much going on. I was doing all sorts of different things, and I was hosting my own show. So it's really hard. And it's social, and there was no social media. There was no internet. There was no Google. God, if we had, if I had that back then, it just, you'd be able to keep track of it,
Yeah.
So that's the one thing that I feel kind of bummed about is that, and it lasts for about 2 seconds, but, just the fact that there was no, like, you couldn't Google me in 1990, but you can Google me today, and it's like, boom, whatever's available will pop up. But I'm always like, I wish the stuff I can't remember would pop up.
Yeah. No, I completely understand that. In the previous segment that I recorded, it was really centered towards the transparency of mental health and like perhaps any obstacle or perhaps any challenge that we face or we don't expect. It really like clouds our minds, our memories. And I don't want to like suppose or assume anything, and I feel like this could just move to the next question, where it's like, from becoming famous, and like what was life like after Playboy? Like, what did you end up doing, and like how was your life after that?
Yeah.